And now that brings us into chapter 22 this morning, and the third parable that Jesus told. There were no chapter breaks in the original text, so this just continues the same event. It's the same scene in the temple in front of the huge crowd that is watching Jesus confront these religious leaders. And Jesus tells this third parable. This third parable is the parable of the wedding feast. Again, look at verse 1. It says, "And Jesus answered and spoke to them again by parables, and said, The kingdom of heaven is like a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son." So in this parable, a king prepares a wedding celebration for his son. And in this parable, the king represents God, the son represents Jesus Christ, and the wedding feast or the wedding celebration is what the Bible calls the marriage supper of the Lamb, that believers in Jesus Christ will celebrate with Jesus. In Revelation chapter 19, if you're taking notes, Revelation chapter 19, verses 7 to 9, it says, "Let us be glad and rejoice and give him glory, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his wife has made herself ready, and to her it will be granted to be arrayed in fine linen," that's important, "arrayed in fine linen, clean and bright, for the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints. Then he said to me, Write, blessed are those who are called to the marriage supper of the Lamb." The marriage supper of the Lamb will take place right after the return of Jesus Christ to the earth in glory and great power, when he returns to the earth to establish his kingdom on the earth. It doesn't take place in heaven, although you hear that quite often from Bible teachers. It takes place on the earth after Jesus returns. The Bible tells us that we will return with him to the earth. In Revelation chapter 19 again, it describes the return of Christ riding out of heaven on a white horse, and he has a robe on, clothed with a robe dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And it says, "And the armies of heaven," listen, "clothed in fine linen, white and clean, followed him on white horses." That's the church, that's believers. That'll be us. The Bible describes Jesus as the bridegroom and the church as his bride. And one of the first things we will do when we return with Christ, if not the first thing, will be celebrating the marriage supper of the Lamb. Jesus will have a great big wedding reception when he returns to the earth to celebrate with his bride, the church. And listen to this. In Luke chapter 12, verse 37, it says that Jesus will gird himself and have us sit down to eat, and he will come and serve us at this meal. He'll serve us. Isn't that crazy? We should be serving him, but he will serve us at the marriage supper of the Lamb. Remember, at the Last Supper, he said to his disciples, I will not drink of this cup again, the cup of wine, until I drink it with you in my kingdom. The next time he says, I'm going to have a glass of wine with my disciples, will be in the kingdom, at the marriage supper of the Lamb. Now, wedding celebrations in ancient Israel were very big events. I know that we think that our wedding celebrations and receptions are a big deal, but in ancient Israel, they lasted 7 days. And guests were expected to stay the entire 7 days of the celebration. And in this parable that we're looking at here, in this parable, this isn't the wedding of just anyone. I mean, it's not the wedding of the son of your neighbor that lives 3 doors down, right? Where you're like, I didn't even know they had a son, and we're invited to this thing. It's not the wedding of your second cousin on your mother's side that you've only met a couple times at some family events and you feel obligated to go to the wedding because it's a family member and your mom will be upset if you don't go. Look what it says. This is the wedding of the Son of the King. The son of the King. This is a royal wedding. If this were a royal wedding today, this would be the wedding of the century. The biggest wedding in your lifetime. And you can imagine only the A-list people and biggest names and celebrities would be invited to the wedding of the son of the King, not common folk like us. You know, if you watched recently with the funeral of the Queen of England and how, the common folks lined the street and watched the hearse go by and the casket go by. The A-listers went into the church, right, for the actual funeral ceremony. Look at verse 2 again. The kingdom of heaven is like a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son, and he sent out his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding, and they were not willing to come. The king sent out his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding, but those who were invited to the wedding were not willing to come. This is unthinkable. They're invited to the wedding celebration of the son of the king. It's the biggest event ever, and they're not willing to come. This speaks specifically of the Jewish leaders in Jesus' day. They were invited to believe in Jesus Christ and receive him as their promised Messiah, but they weren't willing to receive him. Remember the scene. He's addressing the religious leaders in the temple with this parable. The religious leaders were invited to receive Jesus. They were invited by the prophets and the hundreds of messianic prophecies that Jesus fulfilled, but they wouldn't come to Jesus. They wouldn't receive him as their Messiah.